Hello, Rugby League 6s and 7s footy nerds. Welcome back to our Round 9 review, Magic Round. And magic as it was, I've got the Magic Round flu. If it was any other year or 2 years ago, I could be excused for being hungover. But today I've got the man flu. But I had to turn up to talk to my great mate over in France. What a busy weekend in Brisbane. A festival of rugby league. Over 150,000 fans went through the gates at Suncorp Stadium. They talked about 55 million generated for Queensland as a state for how many people come in, but it was unbelievable. I went last year, commentated the last game, same as game I'd done yesterday, but how they organised the event this year, it's unbelievable. Having teams like Melbourne Storm and Raiders to finish the round, not knowing where they would have been. Obviously, the Melbourne Storm were tipped at the start of the year, but the Raiders were unsure about. But have the Broncos against the Panthers. Second last game of the day is massive, and yesterday it was heaving back to the rim still at the last game, and they got to see the game of the round. Obviously, the Melbourne Storm and the Raiders clinched a win, but it was unbelievable for footy. The game's just continuing to grow. Listen to the commentary and listen to people around the grounds. There's talking about a New Zealand team, maybe another Brisbane team. The game's just growing. How are you going, Mitch? How's it going over in France? And you missed out on a special weekend.
Going good over here, brother. You need a good cough and flu syrup or something, brother, because you sound really bad. But it's good to see your face again this morning. And mate, I watched all the games on Magic Round Close, obviously over the weekend. You know what? You talk about getting egg in your face. Geez, I got egg in my face over the weekend. I watched our social media page, 6 and 7s. There's another tipping comp that I'm a part of with Smart B, and I got all my tips wrong. Well, most of them. The Roosters to lose, Warriors to lose, Newcastle to lose, and Canberra to lose. And the only one I backed was Penrith, but I literally had egg in my face. But it's the way the competition is at the moment, up and down, smiles and frowns. And I'll tell you what, Toddy, I would have loved to be up there for Magic Round. I thought the atmosphere... It really is like you just spoke about the NRL and glowing lights, but the way the game is growing now with the fanfare, the media, just everything around it, from young kids, women, old men, young men, it's really becoming events like that are becoming like the Super Bowl in America, and it's scary to think where we can go. We've obviously already played in America, but you see this type of event in sport overseas in countries like America and Europe, but to get that in Australia and start to build our game, it makes you quite proud, doesn't it, as an ex-player in rugby league, people?
Oh, it does. Walking down Caxton Street the first night on Friday night, then getting into the ground and seeing all the novelties out the front. Obviously, there's a lot of boys on Bucks trips, women's on Hens weekends, getting away for the weekend, getting away from their partners, but it was a fanfare for the families. There was lots for the kids to do. Obviously, show bags, hats, or you name it, balls, all the merchandise. Obviously, Magic Round merchandise. They had the retro Raiders NRL jumpers. I've got to speak about the Raiders. I've got my green jumper on today. But it just shows that where the game's going to. Like it was a massive event. The games obviously produces some really good football, as you said, egg in your face. But that's the beauty of rugby league at the moment. It's so up and down. Not up and down to the point where teams are playing bad. It's up and down. You have to be up to win, and if you're not up, you're in a tough place, I reckon, because it's hard to win when you're not up. And where before some of the good teams could scrape away with a win when they weren't really up, but at the moment you've got to be there, and it showed over the weekend. And you did say you got egg in your face, but also you had a masterstroke on the Penrith one, and our loyal footy nerds or unloyal footy nerds get into us too when we start commenting. We must have a lot of Warriors people because they were unhappy with us not going with the Warriors on our comments on our page. I don't know if you see them coming over the weekend.
They were relentless.
They don't stop. They go at it, and I felt like going, you got to go watch the whole thing, because I jumped on the bandwagon and got back on the Warriors. So I had a little bit of saving grace there.
Yeah, you were confused. You were confused with that one.
I was a confused kid last week.
You swapped and changed about the Warriors about 10 times. But, mate, I wish I stuck with the Warriors because they were unbelievable. And I'll tell you what, Metcalf, I didn't know he was that quick. You know, you saw...
He's fast.
was a weekend of quick halves. Fletcher Sharp there for the Knights is unbelievably quick, and he showed that with his 3 tries. But then also Metcalf, I couldn't believe how quick he was. I knew he was evasive and he had good footwork, but mate, some of the speed he showed, especially that line break he made in the second half there was pretty impressive. But yeah, the Warriors. Man, there's something about them this year, isn't it? You know, you don't sort of have those high expectations on them. Well, I haven't anyway. I haven't had these mad expectations on them. I thought they'd be thereabouts. They're showing some impressive form, scratching wins to start the year. But, you know, nothing's a fluke in the way that they're doing it over the last couple of weeks. You know, the early sort of surprise is sort of lost its punch now, and they're delivering. They're delivering week in, week out, and game in, game out, and in all different situations, Toddy.
Yeah, they are. I was one of the people that was sceptical and question marks over them after round 1 over in Vegas. Obviously, straight away when they had that loss against the Raiders, but now we know Raiders are a top 14 the way they're playing. But I was like that same person, everyone else. Oh, Sean Johnson's gone. They're not going to be able to fill his shoes. They've got too many players. But listening to them now and watching them now, they've got their groove happening. They've got some young kids that are just coming off the back fence, literally. Halasima and blokes like that. He had the blonde hair on the weekend, had it ready for Magic Round. They're unfazed because they're coming into the environment of the new Warriors. Like the fanfare that Warriors are travelling with week in, week out, plus their home crowds. No wonder they're talking about having a South Island team, which would be massive for the game and obviously massive for over there. We talk about state of origin rivalry. And it will never be that big, but if they did have a North and South Island game, it would be massive for the game rugby league because it just continues to get more eyes. But there's some teams that are just jumping out of the book just to be recognised. The Raiders yesterday. The Roosters are starting to find some form. Obviously, Cronulla just continues to toil away. They've had some up and down performances again on the weekend. I've got to give a rap to William Kennedy at the back again. I thought Nicho Hines on the weekend played really square. It was a weekend of halves to step up. I was listening to Matty Johns and Cooper Cronk speak last week about Nathan Cleary's style of play at the moment. And when you poke a bear, it usually wakes up. And on the weekend, didn't he wake up? They were talking about he was playing very lateral and getting across the field, dropping blokes under. On the weekend, he stuck with the same thing, but played with a bit of deception, things you speak about as a half. He would not actually, he was very bouncy and sort of would stop and start and playing very direct and square, and it just opened up the Penrith Panthers so much. And I think they have woke the bear there. It's a big cage, big occasion, big occasion, big players step up. And I don't know if you've seen the try, him scoring under the post, very similar to the grand final replay. It just showing glimpses, even the way he threw the ball into the crowd. Just watching him after the game, I was on the field, obviously lapping it up and soaking it up. And that's what the Magic Round's about. It gets the fans get a look of every player over the weekend. And at this stage, everyone got through unscathed. There's no scandals, which is good for the game.
Yeah, exactly what you just said then. It was an impressive, as halves, and we love our halves, it was a great weekend of, as you said, halves individually and halves combinations. Obviously, Cogger, Fletcher Sharp and KP found their niche. We'll go into the Knights in a bit. We spoke about letting the shackles off, and that's exactly what they did. They found an opening that they've been searching for, led from KP and Fletcher Sharp there. You spoke about Nathan Cleary finding that eye of the tiger again. And what I love most about Nathan's game, obviously the try that resembled the GF, but then also just the defence. He had a kick chase there at one point on the fullback for, who was the fullback he put the hit on there? But anyway, he's come down and just inspired his team physically, with and without the ball, kicked a 40-20, he was in everything. And Cobbo. He jammed Cobbo, but it was a statement. And it was vintage Nathan Cleary, got his team back on track. And we spoke about Cronulla, we'll go into them as well, talking about halves. I thought it was the most complete performance of Nicho. The style, and I want to talk about later the choice of plays he used. I thought coming up against Mitch Moses, who probably plays the length of the field really well, I thought it was the best game I've seen Nicho play with the right plays that suit his game.
He took the right decisions every time. I reckon the decisions were made easy for him because he went square. He went direct.
Took a bruise.
Yeah, he took some options. Late last week, he started to run the ball a little bit more, and then this week, when we talk about a week in rugby league is a long time. And I'm not going to knock the Broncos, but they beat the Bulldogs last week. Selwyn Cobbo plays fullback. They're talking about is he next star signing to play fullback. Obviously, Renault put on a masterclass, and then they're talking about how the Broncos can fit him in. It's weird we do it ourselves. When teams win, you jump on their bandwagon and pump their tyres up as much as you can, but you get egg in your face real quick because not that he played bad on the weekend, Selwyn, but he got found out with a great half kicking against him, 40-20s, finding space, and it's just a tough afternoon in the wet there at Suncorp after 7 or 8 games of football. And before we get into our review of the NRL games, we want to touch on the girls' State of Origin Thursday night. The girls, New South Wales girls, get the one up in the series on the Queensland. I sat and watched this one closely because I like to follow the girls' game and see where it's at. Their football's getting so much better. Your little Jessie Southwell, she's left Newcastle. She's not 20 years old. She played square and direct. We speak about halves playing square and direct on the weekend or on Thursday night. For someone that hasn't played a game this year other than sort of trial form or training, didn't look like they'd missed a beat. And well done to the New South Wales girls flying that flag really well.
Yeah, they're outstanding to watch. And as you said, it's the wrestle, the way they're tackling, their heads are in tight. They're replicating the men's game. But what I like about the women's game is it's actually a bit more like the 80s and 90s watching rugby league. There's a quicker ruck speed, obviously, to it because the girls obviously aren't at that physical level of men yet. But I'll tell you what, if they keep working on these wrestle sessions at training, like you can see from each Origin game from year to year, you're seeing more improvement in that area. And you said Southwood, she's a great player. Mate, some of the forwards they're playing for both sides are just so physical. And it is a really good game to watch. And I'm about to have a daughter, so I'm still umming and ahhing whether I want her to play rugby league or not. But it's going to be hard. It's going to be hard to hold them back because, as we just said before, the spectacle that is rugby league now, and how much growth's in the game, and the marketing potential for the girls that are playing that have that passion. There's a career in it for them. So I'm hoping my daughter's a ballet dancer.
It's funny you say that. It's about one of those things like as kids, as boys, you wake up and you want to be the future NRL star and you set yourself dreams in that. But now young girls are getting to watch people they want to be like on TV. And when the girls' game does come full-time, it's going to be a good avenue for young girls to strive to do something outside of the box and to be a professional rugby league player, which I think we'll soon get to. But that's the thing. You're going to have to holding kids back because they're going to be excited about doing it. They want to be like and watching even the crowd, the best Origin crowd for the women is just getting bigger and bigger. And that's a part of the game, but it's just getting bigger and bigger. And I do hope the NRL do come to a point where that the girls become full-time and they get that opportunity to showcase because they are getting better within time and in years to come. I'm sure we'll see an even better package once it's all delivered.
Well, we only have to watch the opening game in Vegas, Australia versus England, and it was nearly 100-0. It just shows where our game is, and obviously there's a big push for it in France and England as well, the women's game. But it just once again shows how the pinnacle that Australian rugby league is and the coaching that they get. I know Ethan Strange's old man's the Origin coach there for the Blues, and he's also at the Roosters. And they're getting the top shelf coaches. They're getting professionalism. You look at the girls' bodies as well, how much they're changing. Some like Jess Surges, for example. How physically fit they look now. They've obviously their training programs
they work
obviously
hard,
replicating the man's game. So it's very impressive.
And our first game on Friday night was the Cronulla Sharks 28 over the Parramatta Eels 18. And this was a really good game. I thought Parramatta showed glimpses of what they did the week before. But as you said, when Cronulla finds their groove and their big blokes roll down the middle, it gives the halves an opportunity. And we've spoken about it a little bit, Nicho, Trindle, Will Kennedy at the back. just showed when they've got some momentum, bit of space, and they can use their control. The Cronulla Sharks are a hard team to beat.
Yeah, I loved the balance of Cronulla's game this week. You spoke about Kennedy, obviously dominating at the back, but it was all the work Nicho did. And I thought, Trindle obviously came up with the 40-20, came up with lots of good plays, and the dynamics of them sharing that first and second receiver role, I think's really effective for him. We spoke about that a bit before, but this was the best game I've seen Nicho play. He had that double lead on the short side where he doubled up his play on the first try. Second half, he had a similar play, but playing back at the post. And then the third one, he had his hand in when he took a bruise on that right edge and put Kennedy, created a 3-on-2 with Kennedy out the back. I think it was when someone who scored on the right, but it was after
Stone
Street's try. But it was the first time I've really seen Nicho play that balance between running game, being able to move across the field with the right selection of plays, and then also taking a real bruise. He had his hand and he was really dominant in his plays, and that freed up Trindle to play his style more. And I think if they're going to win the comp, we always talk about them stepping up in the big games. They're going to have to find this type of footy, and it's going to come through Nicho and using the certain plays that suit his game. I just thought it was the right balance for Nicho on the weekend, and I thought it was a good battle. Obviously, battle of the halves up against Mitch Moses. I thought Mitch did everything he could to get the team back in front. Obviously, blew that try to the half opportunity there with Addo-Carr, and ball went to the loose ball, then put his mate over in the end there. And Parra did well to claw back in, but they just keep winning, Cronulla. And as I said last week, I've got him in my top 4.
Yeah, Cronulla's they find some form, and the good thing about it is for Nicho is that when you play down short sides, you've got only real 2 options: is run or play direct. Because if you crab sideways, you push your outside runners over the sideline. But when he went direct, it gives him options to play short, long, or run. And when he first went to Cronulla, I spoke to Wade about Nicho, and he just said his short sides are unbelievable. And it shows that on the weekend, because a lot of teams, when they've been doing video now, when usually going into games, they'll be going, okay, Nicho's their main man. If we number up on him, we can control him. But at the moment, Trindle in the last few weeks has been sort of the main man, and they're finding their groove there. So if they not number up on Trindle all the time, that means Nicho's got some space, and it showed on the weekend that he got the right plays and come up with the big plays too. And when that happens, Cronulla are a dangerous outfit. I'm with you. I think they're a top 4 team, but we always get question marks around the back end of the year with finals. But on the weekend, if they can show that week in, week out, and there's always a challenge with that too, because teams will do their video and they'll try and work them out. But on that right side, they're lethal. Stone Street's just tallying up tries. Ronald Mulatalo's just sitting out there doing his job. They've got their back 5.
He's tackled late in the game. Ooh.
Yeah. Their back 5 starts their sets, and then their middle goes to work. I like the Cronulla balance, and they just, as you said, they continue to win. So they're going to be a headache all the way through the year, and then finals time is when we need them to step up.
It's good to see, though, like you said, you always, Nicho cops a lot of criticism, but if a player's not playing to their strengths and the right plays that suit them, of course you're not going to look calm and play your best style of footy. So as soon as they work out the puzzle there, which I thought they did look a lot better, that's their best chance of winning the comp. And it was just the first time I watched them, and I thought, you know what, that puzzle's fitting for how they should be playing.
Where do you see, obviously, Parra, they showed some glimpses that they've got some footy in the week before. They had a win over the West Tigers when Mitchell Moses come back, had the bye, going into Magic Round. What do you think of Mitch's game, and is he putting his stamping his authority to be picked for Origin? How do you reckon it's going to go, and what's your thoughts on Parra? Like, where's they need to go to continue to register wins?
There's no doubt they improved, and I thought they showed some grit to get back into the game. I thought Cronulla defended Mitch really well. It was a good example of how to pressure a half that's got good speed and can get across the field. There was a couple of those inside pressures from their back rows that really pressured Mitch. He loves those plays where he can skip out. There's a lot of those. The highlight even over the weekend, Toddy, watching from all teams, we spoke about block plays being the lead on the 2-man now as opposed to the 3-man. And that was so obvious on display on the weekend, going into most of the team's attack. There was so much good footy with hard leads inside those 2 men with a genuine fullback or 5'8" out the back. But that's what Mitch does really well. He skins defenders, and I thought Cronulla took a lot of his time away. That's the the risk when you're a main player in a team that's relying on you against the top 4 sides in defence, you struggle to get room. You're not going to be able to get the same space that you're getting against the lower sides, and they're coming for you. And I suppose Mitch has got to deal with that in this Parramatta side, being that guy, that main guy that's going to have all the touches. But his instincts and ability to come up with stuff. He got Dylan Brown over the line there at the end and nearly dragged his team back in front. His kicking game's great. For me, he'll be in Origin, but we'll get to the Tigers in a second. Jerome just keeps delivering the side that's not expected to win as well. So it's exciting for the Blues.
It is exciting for the Blues, and obviously everyone's talking about it because we had Magic Round. Once Magic Round finishes, all our focus will go into our next big spectacle, and that's obviously Origin 1, which isn't too far away. Our second game on Friday night was the Sydney Roosters 36 over the Dolphins 26. Dolphins come back with a late charge, but the Roosters, they were impressive on the weekend. James Tedesco keeps pushing his name for that Origin recall. But I thought the Roosters done really well. They lost Sandon Smith early to a HIA. Connor Watson comes on and plays 6 and does a really good job. Marky Mark, Robert Toya, outside backs for the Roosters were impressive, and they're putting their hand up. I was listening to Joey speak on the Sunday Footy Show saying that Marky Mark wouldn't look out of place in an Origin jumper. Freddie wasn't too impressed with it. He said that he needs to see a little bit more footy from him, and because when he defended in the season, he spoke about he has to make some decisions defensively. He's now on the wing. He's a big body. He's hard to handle, Marky Mark. But the Roosters, they're finding some form, and they'll get Brendan Smith and Sam Walker back over the coming weeks. They're doing some really good things. The Roosters, they're registering wins. They're winning games that they probably should be winning. And it's impressive.
Yeah, it's a credit to the club. It's a credit to Robbo for keeping the group confident in a period when they were sort of down on confidence. It only takes a good coach, a great coach, to be able to keep the young troops believing and then being able to get these type of results. But my man on the weekend, obviously Tedesco was a standout. Rob Toya, Siwa Wong played great. For me, Hugo as well at half, obviously with Sandon going down. But I thought Victor Radley was the best player on the field. He got 2 tries. Come up with some ball playing ability in the middle of the field there where he hit Billy Smith and created a bit of space. And I just thought Victor Radley with Sandon going down, and you think about the Roosters even when Cooper Cronk was there and they had their 2 premierships. Victor Radley was the lock and he was the ball player, and he created a lot of the space for Luke Keary and Cooper and Teddy. He was that main man in the middle, that Isaiah Yeo for the Roosters. He's obviously been in and out with a few injuries, but their success came off the back of Victor Radley. A lot of their success as a ball player. And, you can't underestimate Victor again on the weekend. Obviously, all the young guys took the light. Rob Toya was unbelievable. He's a super player. They've had big raps on him for a few years now and had a couple of knee injuries, but you can just see it's not hard to tell that why the raps are on him. I think Docker Clay's doing a good job as well at a dummy half. He's been creative for him the last couple of weeks, obviously rotating that role with Connor. I reckon he's been great. But, the investment in the young guys and the transition year is showing its value at the moment. And as I said before, it's only a good coach that can do that, to make these guys believe. As we said, 1 week in the rugby league's a long time. It's only 2 wins. They've been struggling before that, but there's something about them now. We spoke about Roosters. I doubted the Roosters on the weekend winning because I thought the Dolphins had too much spark. But I also said if the Roosters can replicate how they played the week before with that power game, they'll be hard to stop, and they did. So, thank you.
Well, we talk about power game, and I thought the Roosters' power up front, Nafanu White and Spencer Leniu, they lay a really good platform. Obviously, it changes a lot when Connor Watson moves to 6 and Docker plays and comes on more minutes. So someone that they probably wouldn't prepare for in their video as much as they would have Connor coming out of 9. But he done a really good job. And the Roosters, the Dolphins were they're sort of below par selves again. They've showed glimpses throughout the year, but they just can't seem to get it right every week. And that happens with new coaches going into new teams, new systems that they instill. They showed some glimpses. Obviously, the Hammer gets a double, but it just was all too late for the Dolphins. the Roosters were just too impressive. And as you said, Mitch, they're coming good in parts. I'll welcome those two players back. But while we're speaking on the Roosters, I want to give a good mention to our great mate, Boyd Cordner. His SG Ball side clinched the winning golden point in extra time over the weekend to win the grand final against Parramatta. Well done to Boydie. His first year as coaching the SG Ball team. Obviously, the year before he was at the assistant at the Roosters, but he decided to go back and do his own team. And he's a winner, Boydie.
What a winner! Congrats, Boydie. What a huge effort. As soon as Boyd took that role, you just didn't expect him to lose, did you? And to get that success, as an absolute champion, and you could tell how much the boys want to play for him. He's had to galvanise that group. I think they had a couple of losses to start the year, but then ever since then, he's just got them on a roll. He's had players in and out. But shout out to Tyson Walker, Sammy Walker's little brother, who was the 6, and Toby Rodwell, the 7. We love our 6 and 7s.
6 and 7s, baby.
Two really good players, good boys, future NRL players, potentially, if they keep working hard. They've got great talent. And, mate, so many good players across the board there. So, well done, Boydo.
We spoke to it.
This is the first week he's having given Katoa a big rap, boys, and he's still the double pump king. He's still throwing them left and right and all that. What do you think?
You can still give the double pump king a rap. Like Katoa's always going to get raps from our thing, as we said, where 6s and 7s.
The Tongan king is getting a rap for the Dragons off his fucking little short ball. The Tongan king. Don't worry about Katoa. We know the new king, Tongan king.
We need to say his name properly.
King Tonga.
King
Tonga.
It's Tongia.
Tongia. Just King Tonga.
Yeah. But yeah, the double pump king, he comes up some big plays again. He always gets some raps, but he just needs the team to galvanise the team around him and get them to play better for him. But he always seems to play really good football. It's hard to get play your best football on a beaten pack, and the Roosters beat their pack on the weekend, and they were impressive, the Roosters. So well done.
Without being negative though, Toddy, and without being negative just on that game though, there was a good comeback from the Dolphins. They showed some strength. They showed some ability to come back into the game. You know, I think the Roosters would probably be disappointed with leaking that many points as well, wouldn't they, at the back end of that game?
Well, I think a lot of teams like that. We speak about comebacks. You look at the Broncos, the Raiders last weekend. Dolphins are winning easy at halftime, and Dolphins let it slip, and then the same this weekend. The Roosters winning easy at halftime. Dolphins come back in. There's a lot of teams like it. We spoke about it before, what that is, and it's obviously comes down to momentum shifts. And you actually spoke about it before we jumped on to record. It's about the 40-20s in the game, and you asked me what I thought it was. And I think it's teams are kicking early. Teams are kicking early and giving themselves an opportunity, 1, to kick a 40-20, but 2, to get the ball out of their own end, because there's a lot of mistakes coming out of their own end. And if you do that, I think a kick's more important for the momentum at the moment, because it makes teams come out of their own end. It's harder to find the grass when you're kicking on play 5. But yeah, we did see a couple of 40-20s over the weekend, so I reckon that's why. But it just seems to be happening quite a lot before previous years. It wasn't as many as this year, that's for sure.
Yeah, it's just been really noticeable. As you said, we were talking about it before. There was 4 on the weekend, and then it just feels like every week I watch, there's 40-20s pulling out. And I can't remember in the history that there's been that many. So it's interesting what you're saying, that the choice of teams to kick earlier. And then I also thought that it potentially could be the 6 again. You're getting more back-to-back plays. You've got more room to sort of scheme and have a look where there's space. Be cool to hear from one of the players at one point, one of the halves, what they're looking for. You were obviously great at it. I didn't kick too many. You were in your era. You were one of the better ones at capitalising on 40-20s. But yeah, it's been interesting watching it. It's good to watch.
It's a big turning point.
Love
it's
a 40-20.
Good momentum shifter, massive momentum shifter. Well, enough of the 40-20s. Let's talk about our first game Saturday at 2 p.m. The Newcastle Knights 30 over the Rabbits 4. And gee, there was some dusty heads rolling into Suncorp Stadium on Saturday morning. But they tell you what, they got their eyes opened up really quick, because the Newcastle Knights, we spoke about them, get their shackles off. They played against a below par South team. But when you get a win, you build confidence, and you try and take the DNA that you come out of that game into the next one. And the Knights, they had all the momentum. They had come up with some really big plays. You spoke about Fletcher Sharp, and we spoke about him a little bit last week about his ad-lib and his ability to find space and score tries. There's not many better players than him in open space. He just sort of glides and twists the hips, and that mullet just starts flowing in the wind because he's speed. And 21 on the weekend, 3 tries. He's the man of the week, that's for sure.
Yeah, he's unbelievable. And as I said earlier, I couldn't believe how quick he was. I think him and KP obviously stole the show. I think when we spoke about letting the shackles down, we pictured this type of game. There was 2 plays that stood out for me. KP on a kick return when he went down back to a short side. I think he hit Bradman best on the left side of the field. They ended up scoring a length of the field try. There was another one when he came down, and I think he come across and hit Gagai or Pierce Paul on the right, which then led to a try. But it was him at first receiver, playing a bit of ad-lib, skipping and burning defenders. And then the kick return one. That's when you're playing that type of footy. We played this style of footy with Brian Smith in 2010. It was encouraged to play eyes up. If the line's short, pass the ball. If the centres have got space and time and room, give your centres the ball. Like that's the way to break down defence and break up structured footy. And I thought they did that. They obviously listened to our game plan before the game, so thanks for that, boys. But no, it was great to watch because that's what they're capable of. And I think the position they've been in attack as the lowest team in the comps, averaging 10 points, isn't them. They've got the players to do it. We hear a lot about Hastings in, Cogger out. Mate, the team that they got there with Kalen and Fletcher, they've got enough there to attack. And the centres they've got enough there to play. And I thought their style was great, and they've got to back that up. Whatever they did there and bottled it with that creativity, they've got to bottle that again next week.
Yeah, well, the important thing you said there was about KP. He was playing in everything. He's obviously a threat wherever he gets the ball, but when he always gets the ball at the back, it seems very in positions where he's probably not comfortable to get it because the defence has worked it out, the plays from the inside. But when he's at first receiver, they have to adapt and try and work out what he's going to do. And sometimes he probably doesn't know what he's doing, but when he does it, he just finds the right pass. And he was on the weekend, and he was beneficiary for obviously all the tries for Fletcher Sharp. Fletcher Sharp got the beneficiary of Kalen Ponga's working inside his kick, his pass selection, but just found a lot of space and a lot of joy from him playing first receiver. And that comes on the back of their momentum through the middle. But as you said, the momentum they got coming out of yardage by moving the ball early, making the Bunnies move and then break up their middle because they're moving to their strong centres. But the Bunnies obviously were depleted, lots of players out. They showed fight early, but the Newcastle Knights, it was their day. We speak about Magic Round, big players and big moments, and KP, Fletcher Sharp, they were the blokes that sort of stood up this game and took the lights.
It was good to, the 6 and 7, especially the young listeners that are listening, trying to make their way as a half. When you're a half and things aren't working for you, and I'm sure Toddy can vouch for this off the back of me, get your support play right. Because when you support the play and you're present, everything else comes off the back of it. Whenever I was playing bad or predictable in attack, it was usually when I was standing back and being a traffic cop, pointing people around, trying to over-control the game by talking my way into positions. You saw on the weekend, Jack Cogger scores a try off punching a hole off Tyson Frizzell. Fletcher Sharp scores several tries off support play and half opportunities off support play. And Kalen Ponga playing eyes up and being in the moment present. So, and you see it through all the games. Jerome Hughes is one of the best at it. He builds his game off support play, being in the moment. So for any of those young listeners out there listening to the show, when you're struggling for form or you want to create momentum in a game, get your support play going.
It was a big win for Newcastle. They got the Titans next weekend and go into a para, then the bye. So it was a well-earned win. Hopefully for them that will kick off their season because they've been up and down, and they've been asking for this to happen, and it happened over the weekend. I thought KP was the start of it by playing around the mall a lot more, but Fletcher Sharp just done his thing. And for the Bunnies, they'd be just waiting for their stars to come back. Sitting 13th now, they've sort of had some up and down performances. They've sort of been left alone, but they need to start picking it back up before the people start harping on them.
As a Rabbitohs fan, boys, this was like pulling teeth for me, this game. Like, the Rabbitohs didn't look like they wanted it at all, but as you're saying, the Knights need to play that ad-lib footy, and that's their game. Is that going to work against, like, better teams? You know, like, it'll probably work against the Titans. You know, we know they're not too red hot, but you come up against Panthers, you come up against the Storm. Like, is that ad-lib footy that the Knights probably need to play to win going to stand a chance against them?
Oh, I don't think it was... It will if they can create the space and build momentum and find quick play the balls. It can work against anyone. But the challenge for the Newcastle Knights is how they get that momentum, how they find the quick play the ball, how they get space for blokes like Fletcher Sharp, Bradman Best, Kai Pearce on the right. And that comes from Kalen. And I spoke about it last week that he needs to, or if they wanted to change something, to play him 7. He didn't play 7 on the weekend, but he was that first receiver. And when he's at first receiver, it gives himself more options. He's a run threat, he's a pass threat, but then he's also, it creates space out the back for the other players, because once he's at first receiver, he's got the ball in the hand, the A, B, C, and D defenders have to fixate on Kalen because he's such a threat. That doesn't mean he has to play 7 and be in everything. I just feel like when he's at first receiver, more often than not, something comes of their play. But all that has to come back to is the platform that was laid for him through their forward pack, the momentum they got. And like I said, Souths were depleted. They'll come up against the Titans, which will give them a stiffer defence than maybe last weekend. But I think they'll do it again against Newcastle, against Titans. The challenge a week later will be against Parramatta. They'll have all their players back on deck. But the answer to your question, Gabe, is yes, they can do it, but they need to find the balance between doing it all the time and not all the time.
The thing is too, Gabe, the calculated risk we spoke about, Kalen linking up on a kick return, playing down the short side, that's on in state of origin level. That's on against all types of defence. And that bodies in motion creates those one-on-ones for their middles to get quicker play of the ball. So it's not about going out there and throwing balls out of your backside and playing from sideline to sideline when it's not on. It's bodies in motion and it's calculated risk. But yeah, they had a good balance on the weekend. You just wonder where it's been, but let's hope that they can back it up against this week. And as Toddy said, the Titans is the perfect game for them to play that style of footy. They're probably, let's be honest, they're not an 80-minute team, and it's a good opportunity for them to go another level next week.
Second game Saturday night was the Warriors 30 over the Cowboys 26. This was a great game of footy. This was an unbelievable game of footy. We spoke about Metcalf, how fast he was. Our Jackson Purdue scores a try for the Cowboys. Tommy Dearden was in everything. Both teams had their opportunities, but the Warriors, they just continue to hold on and fight, and they find themselves third on the ladder after the weekend. They're impressive. We speak about North-South footy. Their first game over in Vegas, they were very lateral and sideways, but they're playing direct and they're playing through the back of young kids, young middles, and exciting players just rolling down the park and going to space. Metcalf, he's got space. When he goes direct, he's got options to run inside and out of him, and he's got that much speed that he can take the right option. He's through to the second line of defence more often than not because he's so fast. But from the platform his big middles are laying. I spoke of a special mention again to the young Halasima, 19 years old. He's come on the scene a few weeks ago, but he's dangerous. We talk about Ali Lawatiti coming off the back fence, Halasima in the back row. He's just causing havoc.
And that's New Zealand for you. You spoke about the growth of the game there. There must be so many of those type of guys that growing up in South Auckland there that you can nurture, so hopefully they can keep bringing them on. And as a half, Metcalf playing off the back of that, it must be a dream when the middles are rolling forward like that. But yeah, his speed impressed me, as I said earlier. And the second try he scored on the left side of the field when he was at second receiver, it was just a really good balance. He spoke about round one where he played very predictable. You could tell he was really trying to be that game manager. He's doing that now, but he's able to slip into different roles. We talk about moving from first receiver to second receiver. You don't get to make line breaks like that and play. He had that line break off a offload the middle of the field where he got taken out, backed himself to try and pin his ears back. But, he's having little moments. He's having try assists. He's kicking well. So it's a great balance. His 6 is really helping him out as well, giving him that little bit more of an ad-lib style of footy. But, what about the Cowboys, though? I thought they were down and out. Nene 2 tries. Talangi in the end there. And, I thought if Warriors had a loss that one, they're definitely thrown it. But I predicted Cowboys before the game because of this style of footy. They can hit you from any edge. Geez, they move the ball. You talked about, what do you say, north-south. What's the other
north-south.
way? East-west.
East-west.
I'm talking east-west. They can hit you from anywhere.
East-wah.
East-wah. Drink water.
Yeah.
Cliff's playing solid. They're just, he's a good player, Nene, isn't he? Jeez, he's a good player.
Oh, yeah. He's been the difference since he's come back in the starting lineup. We spoke about Metcalf in attack, but a special mention for his try-saver tackle on Murray Tuilagi. That's special. That's effort areas, and you can't teach that. But what thing you can teach is the way he's playing at the moment. And a special mention whoever's got the halves humming up in New Zealand, because Harris Tavita, I've always had question marks on his enthusiasm and how he goes in the games, but watching him over the last few weeks, like after he scores tries, after anyone scores tries, the excitement levels, he's sort of getting that confidence. And when we all know is when you build confidence and your confidence in the group you're in, like he had some time away from the game a little bit, comes back and had some up and down performances. But at the moment, we speak about 6s and 7s. If they can fire together, he was really good on the weekend. Again, Harris Tavita. But yeah, you spoke about the Cowboys. You give it 5 more minutes, it might be a different game. But it's 80 minutes for a reason. You got to give it all in that time, and they fell up short, and it come down to the goal kicking in the end.
Yeah. They mate, the Cowboys they're impressive though, aren't they? I think they who they got next week from Cows. Gabe.
On it, mate. The Cowboys next week have
Panthers. Panthers in Townsville, so it'll be a tough game for the Panthers again. But yeah, as you said, the Cows they've got some obviously challenges in their game. They didn't start well on the weekend, found some groove in the end of the game. But it's a seam at the moment is if you can hold your momentum and you can score points when you've got the moment and you're on the front foot and things are going your way with the 6s against, the rub of the green, the bounce of the ball. If you can get away in the lead and hold on, but it's tough to hold on. Like you can't get away. And the Knights got away and held South to 4, but in other games, teams were getting away and then all of a sudden they were clinching it back. And you just got to hold on when you don't have the momentum sometimes and just sort of grit your teeth and hopefully it changes.
Your Raiders, Toddy, they're the best at that. 3 weeks in a row, coming from behind. Wow. Go the Canberra Raiders.
Yeah, I spoke about that. They're the real deal, the Raiders.
Yeah, they're impressive.
The real deal, the Canberra Raiders. West Tigers 34 over the Dragons 28. Inconsistency to inconsistency for your Dragons, Mitch. Have you jumped off the Flano bandwagon or what is it?
I just would hate to be Jaden Sewer this morning or Sunday morning after that. 20-10, back in the game. Young Flano comes up with a bit of ad-lib footy and then buller. See you later. Jaden Sewer. That was game on there. But Dragons did well to claw themselves back in. I didn't think they were poor, the Dragons, but it was a typical Dragons game. Valentine Holmes obviously on that left edge. Once again, that's been the standout, the highlight of their season. That left edge with Gutho and Flano and Valentine Holmes. He scores a great individual try. But Jerome Luai, I just want to speak about him for a bit. Just the confidence he shows. Like, obviously, he's been in the shadows at Penrith. When I say shadows, he's a 4-time premiership winning 5'8" and 3-time Origin Series winning 5'8", but he probably didn't get the accolades that he gets. But there's an argument to say that him not playing at Penrith this year sort of hurt their form at the start of the year, and then the Tigers 100%. Have gone to a top 8 side off the back of Jerome. So it's sort of worth highlighting. There's always a fair bit of negativity around Jerome. I don't know if he brings it on himself or, he gets a lot of respect as a player, but all we've been talking about is his argument with Galvin. But just as a pure footballer, he's a winner, he's a leader, and he's just an out-and-out believer in his own ability, and it's so good to watch. He comes up with that classy left foot grubber, just all the footy that he's getting on himself as well. Like, he's naturally a runner, but he's creating space for other players in that team, which is probably an add-on to his game that he hasn't, that people probably don't talk about too much, but he's had to step his game up. You didn't see that kind of footy as much when he was playing at Penrith, but he's opening up space for Galvin, creating opportunities for Dewey outside of him. Buller all the time sniffing around off him. So, yeah, Jerome Luai, congratulations for what you're doing over there. And not that you need my congratulations, but it's be nice for people to see or give you those accolades you deserve, because what you're doing there at the Tigers is extremely impressive. And I'm sure guys like Buller and Dewey and the rest of the crew there would be relishing in his leadership, Toddy.
Oh, massively. And he spoke about that when he decided to leave the Panthers to go to the West Tigers, that he wanted to go there and create his own thing. And he's gone there, put on the number 7 jumper. And while there was always question marks and opinions of people how they'll handle being away from Penrith, out of that system, away from Nathan, he's showing it now that while they had a really good combination together, that shows that there's probably a little bit more leaning towards Luai was doing a fair bit of the work also too. Obviously, his communication and attitude around leadership and team-first mentality shows in these performances. Obviously, he's put the Lockie Galvin thing aside. He's made a few comments about it, that it's time to get the best group together and play football and get the wins. And I've seen a clip during the week about the West Tigers in a training camp that they had to do 90 burpees, or a player could run around an oval with a pole. And Jareem Buller, the man of the moment on the weekend, runs 100 and scores under the post. He was the man to put his hand up, and they speak about team first and leadership and what these players have took there. But Terrell May, again, a special mention, 164 metres, 38 tackles, 2 misses. He's just continuing to get better again. 78 minutes. It was just 76 minutes he played on the weekend. So he got a well-earned 4-minute break.
Got to be an Origin lock, doesn't he?
Mate, he has to
he's
be.
Origin. Him, Payne has to start in front row for Origin. They don't go with Terrell May up front. They'll go with Mitch Barnett. But yeah, he's been unbelievable.
It's a good pack for the Blues. Good pack for the Blues as far as the modern-day pack as well. Obviously, Payne Haas on his own level. But to have Terrell and Barney there, Mitch Barnett, with their leg speed, their ability to tackle one-on-one, hardly make any misses for middles, and play huge minutes. It's a blessing for the Blues if they choose to go that way. And it's a no-brainer that they do. And I think we spoke about it before. I think Terrell created a good name for himself at the Roosters. He had that year. He was probably their best forward last year. Obviously, got moved on from the club for whatever reason. And then to go to a side that's probably perceived to be lesser, a side that hasn't got the same roster, or probably as an established club in the Tigers, to go there and be their best player and then dominate the game. It's been a great move for him from a personal point of view, and just to keep ramming home to the fans of how good a player he is to the game. Such a good player. 76 minutes, as you said, to miss 2 tackles. And we've been talking about this from round 1 to now. We spoke about his ability to not miss tackles. There was a period there, I think, first few rounds, you said he was missing sort of 1 or 2 tackles in 75 minutes of footy. So, Terrell, well done, mate. Keep it up. And I'll tell you what, he'd be a good player to play with. He's got a late offload on him. He's got great footwork, and he gets his halves on the front foot.
I'll tell you one player I'd like to run off after he's played the ball is Sanura Taruva.
He's a gun.
He finds it. He's a gun. He gets through so much work every week. He always seems to find himself over the try line. He's in everything, jumping on the back of players.
There's a bit of a Brian Toho about him, isn't he? There's a bit of Brian Toho about him.
They're building for something special. The Tigers, I think they'll play finals football this year, and they'll continue to get better with their confidence. We talk about team environments and having good confidence in teams. They've got that at the moment. Where do you think the Dragons went wrong? Obviously, last week, Lockie Ilias dropped for young King Togia. You call King Tonga for Tongan King.
King Tonga.
Come up with some really good plays. Does the pressure fall on Kyle Flanagan soon? Where do you see this going?
Well, just sort of I imagined it how we we're going to sort of imagine the Dragons to go. Does that make sense? I imagined it how I imagined it. What I was going to say was, I think obviously with Ilias going out of the team, and then obviously the pressure was going to be more mounted on Flano to have more touches and have more influence. And I don't think he's that type of player. I don't think Flano can handle extra pressure and having a game managed and then also organise play for play. And with Ilias being taken out and then bringing obviously the young kid in, it was always going to be the case. And I think it's hard enough as a senior half to manage a game when you sort of haven't got too much experience around you. So, and I think young Flano is a reflection of how the team is as well. They don't play for 80 minutes. They leak a lot of points in periods on their line and in the midfield defensively. So, yeah, I think the Dragons are a side that I think I've said it a few times that they can make the 8. I'm not going back on that. But their inconsistency when they lose is a worry. And they've got a bit of Newcastle about them at times. You just sort of don't know what Dragons are going to turn up, which is a worry. And as I said, there's improvement the way they defend. They're definitely more dogged. They've got class now with Valentine Holmes and Gutho. That's given them some X factor. But I think the lack of experience in their halves and that sort of alpha in that position is going to hurt them in how far they go up the ladder.
Yeah, Alpha. I would hear the Alpha in the middle, Alpha at the halves. Obviously, the bloke that needs to steer the ship, and they showed some glimpses on the week. And I'm going to put it down, and we speak about alphas, and we speak about alphas in front rows. And I just want to go into stats, and I don't look at too much stats all the time, but for the front row for the West Tigers, Terrell May, 76 minutes, 17 hit-ups, 164 metres. Fanua Bolle, 14 hit-ups, 126 metres. To Dragons starting middle. Toby Couchman, 12 hit-ups, 90 metres. Clemmer, 3 hit-ups, 55 metres. 6 hit-ups, 55 metres. Like, just a difference in their packs. And the platform was laid by the Tigers. Valentine
that can
Holmes
also
to
come
me
back on possession too, can't it, Toddy? That can
comes back on
also
possession.
be-
It's 100%. It comes back on possession, but I'm just laying a stat, and I'm not saying I always go to stats, but there's a big difference there. I'll try and go to more stats for you if you want. Try and find a possession of the field. 50% possession for both teams.
That makes it a bit more scary.
But for me, the shining light for the Dragons again is Valentine Holmes. He's just 260 something metres. Here I am just talking about my stats again, but it just shows that he's not a class above, but he's continuing to get better. The move down to the Dragons has been really good for him. I think obviously he's always been in some form, but he's so fast, looks so fast. Watching him live, he's just dangerous every time he gets the ball. He finds a quick play of the ball. He always pokes his nose through. But well done to the Tigers again to continue in now sitting in the top 8 on 8th spot. So well done to the West Tigers. Bulldogs 38 over the Titans 18. And the Titans, they're in a world of pain. There's obviously when you're in a world of pain, your team's starting to lose. Question marks around coaches, question marks around players. I was actually seeing Kieran Foran, had a good chat to him on Saturday night. He's not too far away to return, but I'm not sure where that will be for him. But it's an interesting one for me. The Titans, they show patches of brilliance. Obviously losing Tommy Weaver early to a HIA hurt him. Randall had to go fill the 6th spot, but there's not one noted kicker in that team. Jalen de Groot tried hard to sort of muster things up. But this is the thing we speak about when you go with your sort of players that can play half at a pinch, but when your pressure gets put on you, you need to rely on your kicking game and get your team around the park. If you lose that leader, your team falls to pieces, and it showed that on the weekend. But the Bulldogs bounced back from their loss against the Broncos last weekend and played some really good football again. Where'd you see it, and how do you think this one went?
Yeah, well, as you just said then, it doesn't only make it hard when you haven't got traditional halves and ability to be able to kick, it also makes it twice as hard when you're playing Bulldogs who defend better than anyone and you're being suffocated. So the Titans, as we said, talking on the Titans quickly, we spoke about them when they play on the front foot. and they have a bit of ruck speed. Brimsons and Campbells, these type of guys have got the ability to create some space. They're good footy players, but the Achilles heel to that's been this year of playing off the back foot. They've struggled. They can't create any momentum, and their kicking game's poor. And added to that, their defence is diabolical at times. Their edge defence is super poor. They're passive. They struggle to come up with a fight for 80 minutes. And the Dogs, on the other hand, are the pinnacle of that at the moment. We spoke about the Dogs a couple of weeks ago. They're starting to put that live ball footy together. And some of the tries on the weekend, Crichton obviously on that right edge and Carraz just lighting the game up. There was that one play, Crichton, the old in and away, Mark Gasnier-like. He's just in a world of his own. Carraz, they're talking about an origin opportunity for him now, I read today. So that's how quickly momentum can swing. But he's been super for him. Just across the board, I thought the most impressive thing for them, obviously individual tries, hitting them on both edges, shot for shot footy in the middle of the field. But it's the live ball footy that they're creating now. They can hit you from anywhere. And I didn't see that in the Dogs, and I said it a few times last year and at the start of the year. I think the final last year when they got bowed out in the semis probably came back to their lack of ability to really create space in live ball arm wrestles and create opportunities in live ball arm wrestles. But now they're becoming that team. They grind, they defend well, and they can pull your pants down from anywhere. And they've got two massive centres out there in Bronson, Cherry and Crichton. They've got speed out wide, and they've got two halves now, and obviously with Tracy out the back that are doing a huge job. They're good. They're real good. And kick out. Like how good, you talk about defending. I spoke earlier about Cronulla pressuring Parramatta in defence and taking Mitch Moses' time away. Who does it better than kick out? Tell me. I don't know anyone that does it better than him. From four-man defender, obviously their system's pretty elite, but he does that better than anyone. To be able to, and what we mean by that for the listeners is when you're taught to defend from the inside out. So when the ball goes past a defender, if you're an A defender, one off the ruck. When the ball goes past, it's your job to attack from the inside. When the ball player goes from the outside of B, it's your job to attack from the inside. And as a four-man defender, when they have that ability to change speed and pressure from the inside, it helps your whole defensive line. And watch him closely, fans. He did one on the weekend where he come out of the line and jammed someone. I can't remember who it was exactly, but he is such a good four-man defender.
Unbelievable. When we speak about Carraz, what's your thoughts? I won't attack you with Origin teams today, but we'll do this on Wednesday. And I want our footy nerds also. I want to give a special mention to our footy nerds. Over the weekend, over the course of the 3 days, I had a few people come up to me talking about how they're loving the potty and things like that, asking about our merchandise. So we are going to get to that. But next week, on Wednesday, for our fan thing, I want you to start sending in your Origin teams and we can start dissecting what we think our New South Wales team, what our Queensland team will be. But, yeah, I'm with you. I want to talk about Stephen Crichton, and he gets his raps about his defence, his attack, his ability to find space, leadership, but his goal kicking. He's been unbelievable with his goal kicking since he's taken over from Matty Burton. The Titans were brave enough to score 4 tries on the weekend. Brian Kelly shanked a couple and slipped over on one. But, yeah, I think the Bulldogs, obviously, that wasn't a concern, but I thought over the weekend they showed that why they're that team that everyone wants to beat, and they showed some glimpses of that. They would be disappointed with the 4 tries the Titans scored because they have prided themselves on defence and they've put pressure on teams not to score many, but the Titans were brave enough to score 2 tries. 3 sin bins out of this game. We only had not as many over the weekend, which I thought there could have been a few more. But, yeah, the goal kicking for me for Crichton, he's just getting better with his game, and it's scary to see how much better he can get.
They listened to Daddy Volandis, didn't they, on the weekend?
He's the boss, eh?
Good boy. Good boys, ref. Good boys. Listen to your dad.
Listen to your dad or you get fired.
Listen to your dad or you're going to Super League.
Heaps of players laying down, not laying down, but like getting half hit over the chin and like taking ages to play the ball. And we'll talk about it in the Raiders game. A few players were 10, 15-second play. The ball was waiting for him to go back a play. It did a few times, but obviously the field goal was one of them, which is a game we'll talk about last. But we'll talk about the sleep.
Do you get coached to say down? Does your coach?
No.
No.
Wake up to yourself. Go. Coach to lay down.
I thought if you got knocked in the head, you'd get told to milk the penalty.
I'll tell you what, I said it once before, Gabe, on we were talking about I think it was when, who was it that was dumped? Who was it that weeks ago got penalised for coaching the ref and saying, he's offside, and then the other team got a penalty? Curran, yeah. But I was saying, when you talk about laying down, Billy Slater was the best at that. Like, he'd be chasing kicks at the post all the time, hit the deck like over the top like a soccer player, and he'd always get a penalty. But he was clever at it. They were doing that all the time. I wouldn't say he's lying down, so be careful how I said that. He never laid down, but they were smart.
That's not what I mean.
They milked the penalties.
Don't put words in his mouth.
All I'm saying is, it wouldn't surprise me if coaches were saying, if you get one across you think that they've hit you on the jaw, stay on the ground for a bit longer and try and get the penalty, because it's smart. It's annoying. I think there's players that definitely go, if you're getting hit around the head and you know it's obvious, the ref's staring at you. There might be a little milk, little Canberra milk.
The Canberra milk. We'll talk about the Canberra milk. Poke the bear will wake up, and it was the 32 Panthers over the Brisbane Broncos 8, and we spoke about a long week in rugby league and how quick things can change. You knock off the top of the table, you come up against a team that's at the bottom of the table, polar opposites, and polar opposites in results. Penrith Panthers 32 over the Broncos 8, Mitch. How did this play out for you? We always give raps to our main man, Nathan Cleary, about his performances. One, because how special he was in our podcast, and two, just because he's the go to the game, and obviously future immortal, but he was impressive on the weekend. They were all impressive.
They were, and that's why I said
Dylan Edwards, was back to his best.
Yeah, that's why I said before the game, and obviously, most people will lean towards the Broncos, and I said you can't doubt a champion. There's still something about this Panthers side. I did say as well that it's getting leaner and leaner if they keep losing, but this was a big breakthrough for them, and I can honestly see them now going on a roll because of the way that they played. And there's no doubt they're going through. They're wrestling with themselves at the moment a bit. They've had heaps of success. The puzzle's not connecting as well as they'd like. They had a big win a couple of weeks ago. They had a form slump the week before, and then on the big stage they rediscovered themselves. And I really think when they get their groove, we're going to see the best of the Panthers again. You can't doubt a champion. And the way Nathan Cleary played again on the weekend, he's that. He's a champion. We've been saying that all year, and we're speaking the highest of honour about Nathan, but the way he played, 40-20, as I said earlier, the way his kick chases, his efforts, how physical he played, he went after the game as a halfback and as a leader. The try was honestly crazy, to watch that on replay and how similar it was. It's almost a bit weird.
How similar, same teams, it's crazy.
Kevin Walter said it was hard for him to watch.
Yeah, Kevin would have been having nightmares.
Yeah.
I was like deja vu. It's a bit weird. Weird, but
I want to
cool
give a special mention to Luke Garner coming back into the centres for the Penrith Panthers on the weekend. I thought he was impressive. All Penrith's outside back. Thomas Jenkins, a kid that played fullback a few weeks ago when Dylan Edwards was out, picked over Blaze Salungi. Didn't have a full-time contract at the start of the year, was on a training trial. He's come in and hasn't looked out of beat. He was really impressive on the weekend, scoring 2 tries. Moses Leota was really good, their forward pack. Still, Sorensen's still out, but as you said, you can't knock a champion team, and I thought they were really good on the weekend. They got a tough game in Townsville up against the Cowboys this weekend coming, but they need to continue to register wins. Obviously, Origin's just around the corner, and they'll lose a fair few of their stars through Origin. What did you think of the Broncos' performance? I actually had a good on Friday night. I spent some time with Trent Barrett. I was working with Dynamic Sports, double dipping, getting some going around to some box visits through the stadium and stuff. And Baz was my partner. And it was so good listening to Baz, like obviously, as we both are, Mitch, we're footy nerds, and I was even thinking about we've had some really good guests on our show already. They were yet to release. I was talking to Baz about it, and he said he'd love to jump on. But just listening to him to talk about, one, from his playing perspective, as a head coach and now an assistant coach, the challenges that he spoke about, and obviously the challenges as a head coach, obviously you have to be it's a hard one for him, he said, but he's finding a really good balance there. And I questioned him. I said, where do you think he's at? He said, obviously, like anything, there's improvement. But as he said, you just don't know some weeks what you're going to get. And that's what it was to me, the Broncos. Obviously, the Panthers was going to be a tough afternoon because, as we said, big stages, they will stand up. But the Broncos, they just look very, very out of it.
Yeah, I thought the worry for the Broncos was that 20-minute period when they could hardly score. They got a penalty goal, and then off the back of that, it sort of all went to shit. I saw Madge come out after the game and speak and sort of take ownership of that period. He said a few of his interchanges were poor. He sort of took responsibility off Adam Reynolds, the press conference with him and Renault after the game. And I think it was pretty strange from Madge to sort of come out and say that. I wouldn't have put that down to interchanges. I thought they looked clunky. They were very one out through that period. They didn't sort of have too much flow. There could be an excuse and an argument for Walshy not playing, but in saying that, we're all talking in glowing lights about Cobbo the week before. So, the thing with they look disjointed at times, the Broncos, and as Baz was just saying, you spoke about Baz, you don't know what you're going to get from them. You know, you get round one against the Roosters, 50 points. Last week, they looked like they're top four side again, and then they come out this week and they look like they haven't had a coffee together all week or a conversation. So, and there's the thing that's noticeable with the Broncos. Obviously, you got Payne Haas, who's always going to play a 9 out of 10. Carrigan always puts his hand up. I think when they're not connected, you can tell that it just turns into a forward battle where there's a sort of almost disconnect between their halves and their middles. It's like two different packs, two different sort of groups. They sort of try and solve problems on their own. They become really individual. And I saw the same issues with them last year. So I don't know what you can put that down to. I'm not sure. But that was the thing that let them down again on the weekend, I thought. That 20-minute period against the Penrith Panthers, you got to ice some tries there. You got to put some points on. You got to make them pay.
Yeah, they had plenty of opportunities to score points. I was with you. I thought they didn't sort of deliver the same as they did the week before. Obviously, there was a clear intent of what they were going to do against the Bulldogs last week and dropping blokes under, making the defence make decisions. They didn't see as much as that this weekend. They seemed very lateral in times, running out of space and just looking for the bigger players to make options. Obviously, on the back of every Broncos and rugby league fans, the question mark is, does Ezra Mann come back into the team? Round 10 this weekend coming up. Will Ezra be back in the team, do you think?
I think the loss and the inconsistency is going to make way for him. I think Ben Hunt going back to 9. I think I just spoke about the disconnect sometimes with the middles, the pack of middles playing a bit more individual and then the split between the halves. I think maybe Benny Hunt going back to 9 can sort of connect that. And then obviously Ezra Mann's going to give him a bit more of a running game. Obviously he's a bit more of that X factor. And then, you know, Renault was disappointing on the weekend. He'd obviously say that himself. He had a world-class game the week before on the weekend, kicked the ball out the forward. He didn't have his best game. He sort of struggled. That happens sometimes. But, you know, he's a great half. He'll back up this week and play well again. And I think maybe coming off a really disappointing loss when you're sort of on a big stage like that, like Magic Round, at home, local team, you need your Mondays and Tuesday to have a bit of excitement about it, a bit of change to rebound out of it because it can hurt. Like there's a bit of embarrassment, I think, for anyone on a Magic Round, but also when you're the home team. And I think maybe new legs with Ezra, confidence, Benny Hunt back to 9, a few tinkers there. It could be effective. Could be effective.
Oh, it'll be definitely effective. I just don't know if they'll bring him back straight away. Might give him a game of football in the lower grades, but it'd be interesting to see. But he's obviously a welcome, and it could be a timely addition for the Broncos when they need it. They're still sitting 5th, still comfortable in the top 8. But well done to the Penrith Panthers, bouncing back and showing the form that we know they can deliver. This is the game of the round. The game I commentated. I'm wearing my green jumper for a reason today. The Canberra Raiders 20 in extra time over the Melbourne Storm 18. Raiders find themselves second on the ladder and the Storm back to fourth. What a game of football to finish Magic Round. The footy festival is finished. And I said it in commentary, sucked into the fans that left early to get to Caxton Street to find a chair because you missed out on the best part of the game, the final minutes of the regular time, and then obviously Golden Point penalty. But what a game of football. Both teams deserve to win this game, but there's only one winner in our game, and the Raiders, they found a way.
Yeah, and as I said earlier, it was the third good comeback, third come from behind victory. Last 3 weeks they've been down on the ladder, down on the points the first 20 minutes, and they've clawed their way back up. So it was really impressive from Canberra. I speak about it every week. KO Weeks, Tomoko, and Tamale are the best outside backs, young outside backs in the game. When I say that, the ones that probably don't get the compliments. Chuck Savage in there as well. The ones that don't get the compliments of the rep players of yet, but they on the way that they play, beating players one-on-one, the way they are in the air, catching kicks, defensively, they're as good as anyone in the comp. So they're outside backs, they're forwards with Mariota, Hoskins, Tapine, their offload ability, their ability to pop balls. Mariota had one there late. There was half an opportunity, but mate, the balance with Canberra at the moment. I spoke before about the Broncos and the bit of disconnect. There's no disconnect with Canberra. Their outside backs are humming. Their middles are aiming up physically. They're getting their meters through the middle are as good as any other team in the comp. But it's the offloads. It's the second phase. It's the second phase from Canberra. And traditionally, the Storm have struggled. I remember there was a period there the Storm struggled against the Warriors because teams that played structured footy against them, they handled it with ease with their wrestle, but I remember the Warriors for a period they really caused the Storm a bit of hell, and it was because of their ability to offload and with late footwork, big outside backs, big middles. That's Canberra for you, Toddy.
Yeah, it is, and as I said, I commentated this one, and when the Storm got out to an early lead and watching it live, the Raiders were having difficulty with the Storm's ability to move the ball, playing their style of football, offloading on them, getting around the middle, Pappenhauser, Munster, finding quick play the balls, and all of a sudden they'd just find it themselves and the shackles were falling off. But something happened in the Raiders, and I know what happened is that Papa Lee come on the field, he straightened the team up, he found meters, he found quick play the balls and found some momentum. But for the Raiders, if they can sort of find that groove continuously, they're going to be a tough team to beat because, as you said, their outside backs are unfazed. They're not getting, obviously, all the accolades as the superstars of our game in the outside backs, but they're just ticking away and they know what they need to do to get the team. But Big Red, Joe Tarpany, Hudson Young, Matty Nicholson, they had something in the water on the weekend because they're all keen to have a scuffle and they're in everything. Big Red was fired up. But the Raiders bench for me again, they showed the difference. Owen Paddy didn't have a great night, but Addy Mariota, Papali, the Mule, Hosking coming on, they just changed the game, and that's what won it for the Raiders, I think, on the weekend was their change of direction from when the blokes come off the bench. Obviously, Jamal's kicking game was impressive, goal kicking again, no misses. But yeah, KO Weeks finishes the moment, breaks through the middle of the field off an offload from Matty Nicholson, gets to Papineau and chips over the top. Brett Mullins scores next to the post and Fogarty knocks it over. But I'm going to give rap to Hudson Young. He's one player, if my game's on the line, I'm not going to a half. I'm going to Hudson Young to find something. And that carry he took on the weekend, it was hard and fast, direct, and there's only one way. You have to put a shot at him, otherwise he gets a quick play the ball. Jamal Fogarty kicks a field goal from the quick play the ball. Puts his body on the line, rips in, and Trent Liera hits him high. Penalty, Raiders win the game.
It was Boyd Cordner like. We spoke about our mate Boydie earlier about winning SG ball. That was a Boyd Cordner carry, and he does that week in, week out. He scored a try against the Titans a few weeks ago where he took about 7 plays over the line. He's unbelievable, Hudson Young. But like you said before, Matt Nicholson on the right, Hudson Young on the left. the big mule, Hoskins. They've got second phase. And when you're playing with middles that have got footwork and can offload, Papali, Mariota, these type of guys that can break the game open, it's okay because you've got these direct outside backs that can back rolls that can straighten the attack up. Like the lines that they hit, squares, they're never looking too sideways. You know, anytime an offload will come, you've got the ability to square up because, as you said, they've just got these bulldozers just running over the top of halves and they square their team up. And that carry for the drop goal there at the end there, sorry, the penalty at the end there was just vintage Hudson Young. He's a machine.
Oh, mate. Yeah, he's in everything. They also everything. Little Tommy Starling's just annoying, peppering people. Munsdale getting under Munster's skin. It was a great performance from the Raiders, and what I love about the Raiders and watching them live is watching Sticky on the sideline, sculling his water, spitting, riding every moment, and even watching him before the games. You know, when you're in the shed, you give the dabs and tap and pats on the back and a cuddle and give him a squeeze and say good luck. Ricky was in doing that for the Raiders boys on the weekend. It just shows how much he's invested in this group and what it means to him. And when you've got that from your coach, as players, you got to go out there and give it back for him. And that's what they're doing. They're continuing to get better each week. Trying to work out who they've got next weekend. The Raiders have got the Bulldogs. Another game of the round. Canberra Stadium, Saturday afternoon. Pencil that one in footy nerds because that'll be a special one.
Well, it's the thing with the Raiders. We spoke about the Warriors earlier at the start. It was it felt like a good luck, a good storyline. Like Canberra winning and Warriors winning early, and it was sort of probably waiting a bit for the bubble to burst a little bit. But the way that they're playing now with their consistency, this is the Canberra Raiders of this year, and they're only going to keep improving. And they've got a base there that, like the Warriors, they've got a base there they go back to under pressure. And as I said, they're coming from behind, and that takes composure and trust in your system. So it's going to be a good period. This next 8 weeks, I can't wait to see where Canberra go and where they grow to, and who's going to replace Fogarty, the young kid there, Toddy, or what are they thinking?
Well, by the sounds of it, we spoke about this other week. By the sounds of it, they're going to go for the young kid. There's not many halves on the market. They had a player that is suitable to stay for 3 years, I think, in Jamal. They didn't want to go for that third year. Manly did. So they'd be stupid to go out and try and buy someone. They've let their best playmaker go for the young kid's sake. But like I've said it plenty of times, and for me, I hope this young kid comes in and delivers. But when you're untested, that means you're unknown. And they'll be going into the unknown. Barring injuries, Ethan Sanders won't play a game this year. Unless Jamal's form drops massively and the Raiders start to lose games and there's no chance. But while ever Raiders are in contention to play finals football and Jamal Fogarty's playing really good footy or playing footy, he won't get a game. So potentially next year the Raiders will be going in with a young kid starting the season at halfback. But at the moment we've got the 2025 season ahead of us, and the way they're tracking along, they're a chance of winning the competition. I'm not saying that. I come out yesterday and said the Raiders are the real deal. They've got some lapses that they need to fix from the start of their games, but they've got the confidence in the group that, as you just said, even if their poor starts to games, they're backing their systems and ability to get the wins and to do that against the Melbourne Storm team. And I think Melbourne are missing Harry Grant. I've said it a few weeks ago that he's a big loss for him, and it continues to show. He just seems to slow the balance of the team down. He knows when to sort of pull the trigger on a quick play of the ball when they've got momentum. We're on the weekend. They still played really well, the Melbourne Storm. I just think he's that person that sort of puts that jigsaw puzzle together. He's the final piece of the puzzle, and when he's missing, they get mixed up.
Yeah, it's good to watch, Toddy. I love watching Canberra play.
Oh, well, I've got a special player. I bleed green. I've got my green jumper on. Like I said, if I wasn't sick and have the man flu, I was looking for a Raiders jumper in my cupboard. I was going to wear it this morning, but I'm a little bit cold. But But we man up, we deliver for our footy nerds because that's what it's all about. We do this for our footy nerds, and like I said, over the weekend, I want to give them a special mention again. Let's hope next year, Magic Round, my little mate won't be in France. He'll be back here in Australia, and we might be get around live around Caxton Street, sort of throwing a bit of hurl and abuse. Obviously, we'd be throwing hurl and abuse from inside Caxton Street many moons ago, but what do they call
you get much abuse there?
Bad boys or whatever.
Or any abuse there, or you get all
really.
positivity?
Or positivity. There's a fair few people floating around with some rude heads. They probably didn't even know who I was, but it was an out-and-out really good weekend. I really enjoyed it, and like I said, hopefully next year we can get there and put our mark on the streets. I caught up with the Knuckles from the what's it called?
CTC.
CTC. He was in a box on the weekend. The blokes from Royal. Is it Podcast Royale? The Alpha Boys.
Podcast Royale. Yeah.
They've planted the seed, Mitch. They want me and you to maybe fight on the card next year. I said I'll fight you. I don't know. That's obviously there's some negotiations to go, but if we couldn't come up with an opponent, I said I'd be happy to fight you. So.
Yeah, I've been training, so we'll see how we go.
He's got to win, boys.
You got to win what?
Well, that's me. I might have to dust the gloves off. But yeah, we've planted a seed.
Bit after rush.
It's been bit after a bit of Bill and nudging in the back pocket. It never goes astray, does it?
Happy days.
Yeah, that's a wrap, and it's been like I said. It was a tough challenge this morning getting up. I'm crook as a dog, they say, but you can't keep a good dog down.
You can't keep a good dog down.
He's good.
Well, you tried to keep a dog down, didn't you?
Ooh. I want my 150. It's all about after rush. Hey, for Landys, I want my 120 back now.
All right. Like I said, thank you again. And like I said, on Wednesday this week or Thursday when it will be released, our fan questions, fire them in. If you're a fan over the weekend at Magic Round, that popped in and said hello. I'd love to hear your messages, what you thought of Magic Round and where it can get better. And also, if anything for us that you want us to hear, fire away. But that's your Round 9 Magic Round review done and dusted, over and out. I'm off to bed because I've got a flu. I'm a crook as a dog, like I said. Mitch, go enjoy your sleep over in France. Good night and goodbye.